I arrived in Jeju, the airport was like a shed. I mean, it was a it was only one room, I think, where we came in off the plane, and you could see your bags being brought in from the plane and being carried from the tractor or the trailer up onto this bench where you had to collect it. And there was only one space for everyone going through. Everything, from the smell, the sights, everything was so unfamiliar. And everyone looked so different. So different in the sense that all Koreans looked the same to me at that time. I couldn't distinguish between one Korean or another Korean, except male and female, apart from that. And their clothes, but they all had black hair. They were all around the same height. I mean, now they dyed their hair, which would be unimaginable when I came first. They slept on the floor, which I thought that was due to poverty, which of course it wasn't. First place I came to in Korea was Jeju in 1978. At that time I wasn't a priest, I was a veterinarian, and I worked here for about 2.5 years. And then I returned home to Ireland and I joined the seminary, became a priest, and I came back to Korea in 1986. And since then I've been visiting Jeju nearly. I was based in Seoul, but I visited Jeju frequently. And about 10 years ago, I was appointed to work here in Jeju. And in the place where I used to work as a veterinarian, I now became the parish priest. So I was a priest in charge of the local community here from 10 years ago. And about 3 years, just over 3 years ago, I replaced Father McGlinchey as the boss of the Isidore Development Association. Usually I get up about 6:30, because very often I have a mass to celebrate with the local community or in the retreat house. And then that will be finished. That begins at 7 and will finish before 8 o'clock. And I will come back to the house and get my breakfast. And after that I'd spend some time in prayer. I try to spend time in prayer every day for maybe 3/4 of an hour to an hour. I find it helps me to face whatever problems I have to during the day. And then depending on the day of the week and depending on what's happening around the place, I would go out and visit the retreat house or the nursing home or our hospice for the dying, and more usually visit the farm. Before I left Ireland the first time, I didn't even know where Jeju was. The way I ended up in Jeju was I saw an advertisement for the British Ministry of Overseas Development looking for veterinary surgeons to work in Afghanistan, I think, and Morocco, 2 places I didn't want to go to. But in the bottom of the ad it said, expenses paid, interview to London. So I decided that I would apply for the position, go on the interview, and then I tell them whatever. And so I applied for the position. Among the requirements was you had to get 2 references from 2 people that would recommend you. So I got one who was a former school principal, and I thought, well, now all I want to do is get the interview so I can get to London. And so I asked the Dean of the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine in Ireland. I said if I got him to write a reference, they'd have to call me to the interview. So he agreed, but when I met him, he mentioned to me that he knew of a priest who was looking for a number of years before for a veterinary surgeon in Korea. And he asked me would I be interested. And of course I wasn't interested. But in order to get a good reference and to impress him, I said, I wouldn't mind where I go. And that was it. I forgot about it for a long time. And then just before my final exams, I was called for the interview in London. but I didn't go because my brother's birthday was at the same weekend that the interviews were on. And I said, you know, if I can have a drink and a good time in Ireland, why would I get on a plane to do the same thing? And then right before my final exams, there was a notice put up in the veterinary college with Mr. Reardon, please contact the dean's office. And so most of my friends thought I was in trouble because in all our years no one ever saw a notice like that before. And I had forgotten about the other thing. So it was only when I went, I wonder, is it about this Korea thing? So I went up to him and he said, oh, he had a letter from this priest from Korea and he would be delighted to get a veterinary surgeon, and he said that I would have to get support from an NGO in Ireland called Gorta, which means hunger. So he said, well, the thing I should do is that I should contact Gorta. And I said, fine, I'll do that. But then he kind of jumped the gun a bit. He said, oh, why don't we ring them now? And I was saying, oh God, I wish he wouldn't ring them now because it'll get me into trouble maybe. But so he rang, and then they said, oh, well, you know, they'd be happy to support a vet working overseas, but first of all, they would have to get a formal request from the priest in Korea, and then they will process it. So the dean then said to me, well, now you know what to do. If you write to the priest and get him to write to them, and then they'll apply, and then you can apply for the job. And I said, okay, thank you very much. And then he said, oh, but you're very busy now. He said, I will write to the priest for you. And I said, oh no, I'll write. But he decided he would write. And then right exactly just before my exams, my final exams, we got word that Gorta had got a note from the priest and they were looking for a vet. And I couldn't tell the dean that I wasn't interested. So I said nothing. He said, oh, well, think about it. But in the end, I ended up going to Korea and coming to Jeju. So my original intention was just go to London for a weekend of drinking and dancing and entertainment. And I ended out for 2.5 years in Jeju, and then subsequently ended up for 26 years in Korea. It wasn't what I imagined at all.
Well, it should be a while before I see Dr. Death, and it would sure be nice if I could catch my breath. Well, I'm not the whining or the crying kind till I hear that whistle of the 309. Of the 309.
그냥 겉모습만 봤을 때는 산타클로스 KFC에 나오는 마음씨 좋은 할아버지 같은 느낌. 그 당시에는 지금은 이제 그 수염이라든지 많이 하얘지셨지만 그때는 그래도 좀 거뭇거뭇하셨어요. 그래가지고 그때 어쨌든 갖고 있는 풍채라든지 굉장히 그 표정이 굉장히 사람을 편안하게, 그리고 굉장히 친근감 있게 다가오셨기 때문에 저도 굉장히 편안하게 그 신부님을 만났던 것 같아요. 편안한 인상, 먼저 다가서는 그런 모습, 그런 것들. 저는 신부님이 가장 매력적인 부분이 인간적인 그 정이라고 할까요? 굉장히 많이 갖고 계세요. 그리고 안 그래 보이지만 굉장히 디테일하게 세심하게 배려를 해주세요. 그리고 늘 도움이 필요한 곳에 도움을 주려고 하는 그런 모습들이 저한테는 굉장히 감명 깊게 받아들여졌고요. 그런 것이 다른 사람들한테는 드러나지 않으면서 아주 그런 모습들인 것 같아요. 그런 모습들이 가장 기억에 남고, 그리고 만약에 어디 떠나신다고 한다면은 그런 모습에서 굉장히 좀 제가 아쉬움을 갖지 않을까라는 생각을 하네요. 옆에서 보기에 혼자 사시니까 호랍이죠. 혼자 살다 보니까 그런 데서 오는 좀 옆에서 보기에 좀 외롭겠다라는 생각은 가져요. 근데 제가 그런 질문 사실 했어요. 쉬면 외롭지 않냐고, 혼자 이런 삶을 사는 것이. 근데 그렇지 않다라고 대답을 하시더라고요. 나름대로 그것이 자기 소명이고, 그러기 때문에
I'd say I was lonely but didn't realise it, and the two small things that would make me think that were one night going out and looking up at the stars and see the plough, the chilsung, the Greens call it, I think, and remembering, oh, I can see that from home, which was Ireland at that time, and having a sense of peace that, well, I'm under the same sky. If I had gone to the south hemisphere, God knows what I'd have done, cracked up altogether. But those kind of things that make you feel, I mightn't feel the loneliness itself, but simple things that make you happy or feel content, you say, oh, I must have been missing something. But nothing huge. Now, at no stage do I remember thinking, I want to get on a plane and go home. Like when I was coming out first, I had decided, if this is too tough, I'm getting a bloody plane and going back. I made sure I had enough money for a plane fare. But I never had to use it. In fact, I remember that day, the day I was supposed to leave Jeju, because of fog, the plane was cancelled. And I was delighted. First time I met a couple, and he said, oh, nice to meet you, and they had a bit of a nice to meet you, and I shook hands with the man, and he shook hands and said, nice to meet you, and I went to shake hands with his wife, and his wife went, oh, as if I was going to attack her or something. At that time, a man would never shake hands with another man's wife, either Koreans or foreigners. Like it was part of the culture, wasn't accepted. One of the culture shocks, I suppose, was you would rarely see men and women holding hands, or young people, boyfriends and girlfriends, never holding hands. But you'd see women holding hands, and you'd see men holding hands. So I remember once thinking, God, they're all gay. I don't know, that's which of course they weren't. But you'd see soldiers walking down the street with the guns over their hand and holding hands, and I thought, this is not right. You know, there's something, and it's not that there was anything immoral about it. It just didn't fit images I had of the way people behave. One of the things that happened to me when I came to Korea, and to Jeju in particular, was he mentioned culture shock and strangeness and things that are unfamiliar. One of the things that were familiar were, say, the celebration of the Eucharist, of the Mass, which you have in the church. And even though the language was different, it was Korean rather than English, the order of things when you sit up and sit down and kneel down and etc. was the same. So there was a sense of familiarity in that to me. And the priest here at the time, on Sunday, he would preach sometimes for a half an hour, sometimes for 45 minutes, which to me was very boring because I didn't understand a word what he was saying. But I got off the local sisters here, I got an English Mass book in which the readings for the Sunday Mass were in that. When the priest was preaching at length, I kind of was sitting there not knowing what to do. So without thinking, I just opened the book and would read over again and again and again the gospel for that day. And one of the things that happened to me was I began to see the gospel in a different way. At the same time, like along with culture shock, I went through a kind of a religious shock, because in Ireland most people were Catholics and the rest of them were Christians of some denomination. I had never come in contact with anyone who didn't believe in God or in Christ, and to come to Jeju where most people didn't believe, and not knowing what to expect, and then finding that among some of the very nice people on Jeju there were people who had no religion, which kind of was a challenge to my thinking, because we all said, well, you need a religion to keep you good and make you behave, and here you had these people who were doing very good and being good to their neighbours and doing everything, and they weren't Christians or they weren't Catholics and didn't go to Mass, so you couldn't just condemn them. So then I began to say, well, why should I bother going to Mass, and why should I bother praying, and why should I do all these things? So I kind of went through a crisis of faith and with lots of doubts. But the thing about doubt, I think, is a healthy thing. it forces you to question and to find out, well, is what you do or what you believe really of value? For me to realise there was a value in this that was different from the one I had realised. I had been a Catholic in Ireland without really thinking through or making any decision, because I was baptised as a baby, and going through school we learned catechism and all that. Here I suddenly was given a choice. I could follow that or not, and I began to think about it and ask questions about faith and that. Along with that, as I said, I began to look at the Bible in a different way and see Jesus in a different light, and that would have affected me. So my mind was open to religion in a new way. I remember one crisis I had within the seminary. A priest asked me, well, why do you want to be a Colombian priest, missionary priest? And I said, well, I want to go back to Jeju, go back to Korea. And he said to me, you know, you might be sent somewhere else, because within the Colombians we're missions in about 17 different countries. He said, you could be sent to South America or Pakistan or somewhere else. Well, for a couple of nights I said, gee, I'm not going to stay here to go to Pakistan or go to South America. I want to go to Korea. And it was a challenge to what I thought was a vocation, what I should do. But through a retreat, with a weekend retreat, or not a few days retreat, at which I never brought up the subject in the retreat, I never thought about it. But the end result of at the time of prayer, that was, okay, if I'll stay, if this seems to be right for me, and if I'm not sent to Korea, that's all right too. So I was quite happy at that time to go wherever I would be sent. So, like, I think in religion and faith, I distinguish between faith and religion, but in faith, it gives you freedom. You know, that you don't limit yourself to one way of thinking, one way of doing things, and that there's a degree of freedom in it, and then from the freedom comes that contentment and that happiness deep down, I think. So if I had stayed on condition I would go to Korea, they would have made a mistake to ordain me. They should have thrown me out, I think. Anyway, I'd say that now because I got through. That's how it would work. Like, there were loads of reasons came together, and not any one particular one was the deciding factor, except that once I decided, the sense that this felt right and this was okay, because coming to Korea I had that feeling and it worked out, I decided I can trust that feeling again. So Isidore has always responded to the needs of the people, the needs of Jeju. So to say in 10 years' time I will do such and such a thing, or next year I'll do such a thing, is very difficult to say. We're always trying to feel out how can we continue to serve people in Jeju, to show, you know, I suppose if you're thinking in faith terms, how can you continue to show God's love in different ways? And that's not easy. I mean, it'd be much easier to have a plan and follow it and do this. I'm going to do this regardless. But I'm sure when Father McClinchy started this, he had no idea that he'd have all these things going on after 50 years and continue to go on. So we'd always be looking to see what is the need, how can we serve people. Life isn't so nice and clean and tidy, there's all sorts of other things in it. So just in the future, how to remain faithful to the vision, and how to look for ways, always looking for ways. What can we do now to help the present situation rather than looking into the past? And somehow things work out. I mean, there's lots of difficulties and problems, and my hair is going grey, and I'm losing the hair at the top of my head. But in spite of that, when I get away and look back at it, when you're in the middle of it, it looks, oh, why are we doing this? When you get outside and look in, you say, God, there's great work going on here. And I suppose from a faith perspective, I'd have to say that somehow God is working good through all that we're doing here. It's not perfect, but I don't think anything is. And so we look to the future with hope, and try to remain faithful to serving people and to doing good for people and helping people to become independent.